Excuse me. All right, let's go ahead and solve two-step equations. Let's go ahead to part 2. So in part 1, you learned about two-step equations, exactly what they are. We dealt with just whole numbers in that case. Or actually, I should say integers. We dealt with just whole numbers and integers in that case. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some fractions to this, okay? So I have 25 25 equals 1/4 n minus 3. Just like before, I'm going to work in the opposite direction of what my order of operations say, okay? So my order of operations say to do addition and subtraction last, so I'm going to do it first when I work backwards to undo solving this equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for addition and subtraction, and I see some subtraction right here. I see a subtraction of 3, so what I need to do is get rid of that subtraction of 3. So I do the opposite of subtracting 3, which is adding 3. But because I want to keep a balance, I'm going to do that on the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to do a plus 3 over here on that side of the equal sign. These are opposites, so they cancel out because negative 3 or minus 3, positive 3 equals 0. Over here, I'm going to end up with 1/4 n. Over here, I'm going to take 25 plus 3. 25 plus 3 gives me 28. I still do not know what n is equal to because I have a 1/4 with it, okay? So again, I have a fraction times a variable. You could divide by the fraction, but that would be a little more messy. So I think an easier, instead of dividing, I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal, okay? So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4/1. And I'm going to do that to both sides. I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 4/1. You did see me write it over here on the side. That's where typically you write a multiplication, but I wrote it down below this time. 1/4 times 4/1 equals 1. 1 times n is n, because we talked about these are reciprocals. The reciprocals equal 1. So I take 24 over 4/1. Well, hopefully you realize that 4/1 is just 4. So really you have 28 times 4, which gives you an answer of 112. So you end up with 112 equals n. Okay, our next example, we're going to have 6 minus 2/3 x equals 20. So again, I want to take a look at what's going on. I see that there are 2 steps. So the first thing I need to do is looking for addition or subtraction. I see this subtraction here, but I notice that this 2/3 is really joined with the x. So really this is negative 2/3 x. What I have is this coefficient, or this number right here, this integer, the 6, it's all by itself. So that's what I'm going to get rid of first. So I got to look at this 6. Is this 6 positive or negative? Well, there's no sign in front of it, so it's positive. How do I get rid of a positive 6? I do a subtract 6. Okay, I do that to the other side of the equal sign. This will cancel out because they're opposites. This minus sign now actually associates itself as a negative with the 2/3 x. 20 minus 6 actually gives me 14. Negative 2/3 x equals 14. This is being multiplied. How do I undo multiplication? I do division normally, but I don't want to divide by the decimal or by a fraction. So what I'm going to do, instead of dividing by the fraction, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal of negative 2/3 is negative 3/2. I'm going to do that to both sides. Negative 2/3 times negative 3/2 is equal to x, or 1x, or just x. 14 times negative 3/2. So I'm going to go ahead and show this one. 14/1 is the fraction times negative 3/2. Okay. 14 times negative 3 gives me an answer of negative 42 because of positive times a negative. 1 times 2 gives me 2. So I got negative 42/2. So I'm going to write that down here. X equals negative 42/2. I can simplify it because 2 goes into both of them. So I'm going to divide each of these by 2 because I'm going to try to simplify it. That's going to give me negative 21/1, which negative 21/1 actually is just the answer of negative 21. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and show you one more example. All right, example I'm going to show you is n divided by negative 3 minus 2 equals negative 18. Okay. Again, we just work backwards. We're looking for addition and subtraction. I see that there's a -2, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 to both sides of the equal sign. So here's a +2 on this side and a +2 on this side. When I do that, these opposites cancel out. That leaves me with n divided by -3, or n over -3. -18 plus 2 gives me a -16. All right. When I have n divided by -3, I do the opposite of dividing by 3. So how do I undo division? I do it by multiplying. So I'm going to multiply by a -3. I'm going to multiply this side by a -3. This will get 1. 1 times n will give me n. When I take a -16 times a -3, a negative times a negative is a positive. So now I just have 16 times 3, which is 48. And so I get an answer of n is equal to 48. Good luck with your practice.